Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the East Lyme Board of Selectmen regular meeting. Today is January 8th. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask that you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't believe there are any additional agenda or consent calendar items this evening. Delegations, anybody from that would like to speak to the board under public delegations this evening? Okay. Hearing none, first item then will be the approval of minutes of the meeting of December 18th, 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and second. Is there any discussion on this item? We did get a note from Mr. Sawicki. His comments are attached. As you recall, he read the comments to us at the last time. He was concerned about the way they came out online with different
Punctuation.
characters
Yeah.
and symbols and things that he didn't put in there, but I think Karen is going to work on that and try to get rid of those symbols. But I think the substance and comments were what he put forth, and we've not heard back from him, so we'll assume that all is okay.
Right.
Any further comments on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Consent calendar?
Move the consent calendar for this meeting of January 8th, 2014, in the amount of $3,368.61.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Okay. Motion carries. This evening, I would like to welcome the project managers for the Regional Communications Center in New London County. They're going to give us a presentation. Bill Allen is here as the East Lyme representative, Tammy Doherty representing New London, Lieutenants Mahoney and Bellows representing Waterford. Congratulations on your promotion, well deserved, and welcome. This has been a few years, I guess, now in the making and moving forward, and we have talked about this item a couple of times. There has been an initial report, and now this is the feasibility report and recommendations, and you all have a copy. And I don't know if there are other copies out there. If anybody would like a copy, I'd be happy to make a quick couple of copies. Anybody in the audience would like? Okay.
Before the presentation begins, we were handed a packet this evening. Is this the same report as was included in our packet that was mailed to us?
It may be, yeah. I just wasn't sure if we copied. I'm
It's
pretty
the
sure
same.
it is. So I just wanted to make sure we had what was being presented. And I don't know that this PowerPoint we have in here, right? It's a different item. So,
Yes,
so I will introduce the team. We'll go through it. Have any questions afterward, and then we'll go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So welcome. Thank you.
So what we have tonight is the PowerPoint that we put together, and we've been using this as we presented this to all the different groups. So this is the basic timeline. Pretty much lays out that last January, we were all appointed. The towns in the city of New London signed an MOU that secured transitional grants through the state, $250,000 for each community that was going to take part in it. And basically that grant is to offset any startup costs. It's not meant to cover the cost in entirety. So then what we've done is had some working groups. We've met with the town attorneys, dispatchers. We had some presentations by CAD vendors, which is computer-aided dispatch. We entertained two, one which the city of New London uses and one which is currently being used by East Lyme and Waterford. It's been a while since I've seen this, so bear with me. So as you see in the end, we've had meetings with dispatchers, fire departments, and we got a lot of feedback. Some positive and maybe some not so positive, but we took all of that and put it into this presentation. So we'll explain what, in rough terms, what dispatching is. We have all of your services you see as the outside of the wheel, and the dispatchers are really the hub of that whole operation. So the dispatcher obviously takes the calls, routine and emergency, and then they dispatch fire, police, EMS, and we also in this area do the paramedics. So on the regional communications, we'll have one main communications center, and then that, and we can get into why later, but what are you doing? It was our recommendation that the current Waterford Dispatch Center be initially used as the regional center. And then the current East Lyme and New London centers would be online as backups. So if something happened to the main comm center and that went down completely, we could very quickly bring one of the other two up and continue our operations. They would all be connected through the statewide fiber network, which is already in place, and we've already been told that we have access to that.
If I can add something to that, just in the lower left and lower right-hand corner, if you could just go back for a second. It's important to note that the East Lyme radio system remains separate, but bridged through. I mean, essentially you at the console would be speaking on the East Lyme radio system. Waterford and New London currently share a radio system, and the three entities, would all speak together at the same time without interruption or any type of gateway.
So now, as far as the police are concerned, they all have mobile terminals, which are basically laptop computers in their vehicles. And currently, if information has to be sent out to them regarding be on the lookout, that's done by, obviously, just within the confines of each community. Under a regional center, that information can go out to all three communities at the same time, instantly. And as updates come in, they can be, they'll be updated instantly. The beauty to this is that we eliminate the phone trees, as we call it, where East Lyme Dispatch has to call Waterford Dispatch and say, hey, we're looking for this. And by that time, if they're looking for a vehicle traveling through, it's probably long gone.
We currently utilize the police department hotline for multiple agency response, but what we find is that as a larceny, let's say, occurs in East Lyme, by the time that information to put out to the hotline is relayed back and forth with the different police departments, the different dispatch centers, the car is through Waterford and into New London or out to the surrounding communities. We look at this as a far better right from the source type information that an East Lyme car, a Waterford car, and a New London car could send the information out instantly to everyone at the same time.
So to take that concept one step further, if all the fire vehicles, ambulances, police cars in all three communities had these terminals, which we envision they would, that information can be sent out to every vehicle out there. So even though it may be a police issue, there have been instances where the regional paramedics out of Lawrence Memorial Hospital have listened to their scanner and, New London was looking for a particular vehicle and called it in. It may not be a huge time savings, but definitely if everybody's looking at the same information in real time and you're getting more people to see this information out there,
even if you don't have to go through the expense of the mobile data terminals in all the ambulance or fire apparatus, the radio systems, again, we spoke a little while ago about the radio systems being able to speak to everybody at the same time. Information sent in to the dispatch center would be able to be relayed instantly via radio to everyone by the dispatch center. So in Amber Alerts, Silver Alerts, et cetera, when seconds count, be fantastic to be able to send this information out.
So, again, this basically is speaking to what Brett just said, but if we have an incident where, in this particular slide, New London deals with an individual and determines that there's a problem, this individual's a problem for whatever reason, that information can be entered into the CAD system. And now there's a record of that. So that in this particular slide, the ambulance in East Lyme goes to a call and deals with this person, and something doesn't seem right with this individual, they can go into that mobile terminal and pull out the information and say, oh, well, look at that. New London dealt with this individual, and there's a problem. And the same thing in Waterford. And we've actually had this type of incident happen in East Lyme, and I was on the call where we had an individual on Main Street. I had no information. I couldn't rely on any information the individual was giving me. And I get to the hospital in New London, and every nurse in the ER knew him because he's a regular in the city of New London. So, you know, I was kind of no idea what I was dealing with when under one CAD system and this information's entered. It's a benefit to us to know what we're dealing with right off the bat.
This slide primarily speaks to the CAD system and the benefits of having one across 3 municipalities. We deal with people all the time in multiple towns, cities, who we don't know. If some other officer, some other person with the ambulance, fire department, et cetera, has dealt with this person and that information is entered, it is a public safety benefit to the officer, to the fireman, to the paramedic, to the ambulance person, to be able to query one system and receive information that they might not have entered or their agency might not have entered. It is truly a excellent benefit for the boots on the ground.
So one of the things that in the beginning of this project was that we obviously had to provide a better service for the people that we serve. And we see regionalizing the centers as providing that. And this is how we see that. So, in streamlining of services, as we've already discussed, if we have all of our dispatchers sitting in the same room right next to each other, where they currently have to pick up the phone and make a phone call to relay the information, and sometimes in doing this, it may be delayed because they may be sitting in that dispatch center by themselves, and depending on the incident, it may be rather busy for them. Here, it can be handed off and be done by another dispatcher while the original dispatcher is dealing with the incident. We have cost savings. Now, the cost savings may not be realized up front, but going forward, we're all currently paying for maintenance of our CAD programs. If we're sharing one CAD program, we're sharing the expense of that annual maintenance cost. Currently, none of the dispatch centers have any immediate supervision on the floor during the days, during the evenings. So if a problem arises, it's kind of up to the dispatcher to take care of it or wait for somebody to come to take care of it. Under what we're envisioning, we will have a supervisor on the floor every shift 24/7. We have set up a governance board that will oversee this entity that we're calling New London County Regional Dispatch. There will be representation from each participating community, and that representation would be appointed by the community CEO. That gives every participating town equal representation in this project, so that not one town is running it or providing a service for another town. We also see that we're going to need a dedicated information technology person. Currently, none of us have our own IT person that is solely responsible for dispatch and the technology involved. The benefit to that would be that this individual's sole responsibility would be to maintain the CAD system and any other mobile terminals or any of the technology that goes along with this. So he would be up to speed on that program. So this was legislation that was proposed and it has failed, but we've been reassured that it will come up again. And basically it's stating that if you choose not to regionalize, and I think the cutoff was 40,000 population, under 40,000, basically you're not going to be receiving any more state funding for your dispatching operation. So when we looked at how can we make this work so that we all own it, there was nothing within the state that would allow the municipalities to form a government-type agency, and we were pointed towards interlocal agreements, and we didn't like that concept because ultimately somebody is going to be overseeing it for the rest of them. So the town attorneys drafted up a public act, which is pending now, that would allow the municipalities to form this entity structured as a municipal government so that we could receive funds, do payroll, receive grants. Anything else I missed on that?
Just, it's important to note with the last portion of this slide, the 3 towns are seeking legislation, that this is not a single town entity. There's no single town controlling another. It's 2 towns and a city in a mutual partnership that allows voting by the governance board, and one town is not in control of the other. That's how we've structured this, and in looking for this legislation, we want to make sure that all of the town and the 2 towns in the city are able to receive monies and provide benefits to the employees.
So very briefly, I mentioned earlier about the actual CAD program, the computer-aided dispatch. And we looked at 2 different vendors. One was, as you see up there, TriTech. TriTech bought the company that East Lyme currently uses, and they also bought the company that Waterford uses. New London uses a company called SunGuard, and they have a very old program at this point. So no matter which one was chosen, New London was going to have the biggest learning curve as far as their employees. TriTech was able to offer us a better price because of the current licenses that East Lyme and Waterford already have. They were able to use that and work that in. So TriTech was is what we are going to recommend. And And as you can see up there, the only ones that would have the biggest learning curve, as I mentioned, would be the New London dispatchers. And as far as the program goes, they pretty much do the same thing, just do it a little differently, but the information is still the same.
Yeah, just to note the monetary credit in the fourth box down. We recognize that East Lyme has the former IMC product now called Perform, and there would be a credit back to the town for their somewhat recent purchase and the build off the Waterford system. We can go into why they bought the different software systems, but essentially this is the path that TriTech told us this is the best way for you to save money. And that's what we've tried to do throughout this entire project, is look to it with an eye of using the grant money as effectively as possible. This is the best way we see of doing that.
So again, as I mentioned earlier, we have recommended that the current Waterford Dispatch Center initially be used as the regional dispatch center. It's important to keep in mind that ultimately this entity, New London County Dispatch, can be located anywhere, and we fully anticipate that at some point in the future it probably will be located somewhere differently. It's also important to note that we envision this as being able to grow with as many communities that want to participate. It's just because it's the three of us on the startup, that doesn't mean that it has to remain that way forever. But again, the Waterford site has equipment already in place and operational that would be needed in a regional center. They dispatch the paramedics out of L&M, so the equipment is already in their building and in place. Any ambulance on this side of the Thames River that transports a patient to the Lawrence Memorial Hospital has to make a radio patch to the ER in the hospital, letting them know what they're getting. And that radio patch is made through the current Waterford Dispatch Center. So again, that equipment is already there and in place and operational. Now that equipment can be moved. It can be moved anywhere you want, but there is a cost involved to that. So as Brad has already mentioned, what we tried to do through this whole process is keep the startup costs as minimal as possible. And that is why we are recommending the Waterford site initially. As a matter of fact, we've got it there that it's flexible enough, it can be relocated or expanded anyway. The governance board sees fit. And you see a reference to the PSTN, the network, Nutmeg network. That is a statewide fiber data system that we would use to connect all of our sites together. We've already met with the state and we've been told that that's within the realm.
If I could address that, if you look at this slide as a rectangle and just think of it as the state of Connecticut, essentially there are look at it with 6 large interconnected circles throughout that rectangle. That is available to municipalities, available to Waterford, East Lyme, and New London. And information that travels on that currently is dealt with by the school system and is a free, of course we all pay our taxes, but a free connectivity for emergency services. So that's what we would rely on. The looped part is very important to us because we want the redundancy. These things happen in milliseconds, so if a car goes through a fiber site somewhere, the information travels back around the circles and back to the sites, and that's why one of the other reasons that the current Waterford site was chosen, because it's on the loops. The current East Lyme site is a spoke thereof, a straight line thereof, so if you can envision some catastrophic car accident or whatever going through that, that would leave the center for all 3 communities dark.
So this is the organizational structure that we've come up with. As you see, the governance board has 3 members from each municipality. As I said, those would be appointed by the CEOs of each community that participates. And under that, you have the center director and a training coordinator. Again, as I mentioned, off to the side, we have an IT tech person, possibly maybe even needing more than just one. And then broken down into shifts with supervisors who do quality assurance and then their dispatchers. So again, each shift would have a supervisor, which we currently do not.
The important thing to note on this slide is if you count up the number of people shown here, it equals the amount of people that are currently dispatching in each of the communities. This was done through, the number chosen here was not arbitrarily picked. We put this through APCO, which is American Professional Communication Organization. I may have gotten the acronym wrong. But we had one of our dispatchers was good enough to put this through the APCO program. And what it does is it analyzes the amount of calls, the 911 calls, the dispatches, the regular calls for service. And it has a formula that comes out and recommends how many dispatchers, supervisors, et cetera, you would need for a site based off of the population, et cetera. It came out to 20.8 people, unless it's a very short person. We don't have a 0.8 of a person, so we needed 21 total. That is what is currently employed throughout all 3 municipalities. I know that there are people very concerned about this in their jobs. We understand that. I think what we're trying to explain here is that by doing this, nobody loses their job. The other thing that, thank you, Tammy, that is to be shown here is that if you're a dispatcher, currently you sit in a seat and you sit in a seat and then you do your career and you're in that same seat. Everybody wants growth. As Mr. Formica mentioned, Stephen got promoted yesterday. Everybody wants to be promoted. Everybody wants to better their careers. And what this will enable people to do is look forward to a promotion, look forward to a shift supervisor position, a center director position, and grow in their career. And we feel that throughout this, that has been very important, that we found that there's an ability to grow in the profession.
So, getting to the savings. We each have our own CAD program and the associated maintenance costs that go with that. As far as the police go, and some vehicles in East Lyme, the fire service has mobile terminals. And there's a cost involved in that annually. And these numbers are a few months old now, but they're still pretty true. As you can see that New London pays approximately $77,000 a year. Waterford, $57,000.